Thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log. This is a special edition specifically for the FM community for career planning so that they can get a chance to hear from some of the specifically FM senior leaders on how they navigated their career paths. So we've joined with three people today. We'll go around and have you all introduce yourselves, and we'll start with Ms. Tillman.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate the introduction. My name is Alicia Tillman. I am the Chief Financial Management at the Hanscom operating location at Hanscom Air Force Base.
And Ms. Grant?
Good afternoon. I'm Monique Grant, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the C-130. I'm at Wright-Patterson, but I have responsibility for the programs both at Wright-Patterson and at Robins Air Force Base. Thank you.
And Mr. Wyman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Wyman. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Armament Systems Development Division down at Eglin Air Force Base.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to get right into it. We'll start with the first question, and we'll start with Ms. Tillman. Can you talk to the audience and tell us a little bit about what your approach was for managing your career? Did you lay out a formal kind of pathway, and did that change or alter due to life events along the way?
Sure. So my approach was a little bit of both. I started my civilian career as a financial management trainee, so that was very structured 3 years for me, going through various OJTs and cost and budget, EVM, and classes and things I was going through. So by the time I got to the end of my training program, I was already kind of in a pattern of moving around a little bit, as well as getting exposure to a lot of different things. So that set the stage for me going forward into the next part of my career, and looking for always wanting to learn something new. That was really kind of the driving force behind where I chose to go or what I was looking for. You know, sometimes I wanted to have experience with different type of congressional documentation. I wanted to have experience with different acquisition programs. I was fortunate enough to work ACAT 1 programs. I've worked on ACAT 3 and ACAT 2 programs, FMS as well. And, you know, the various different appropriations and trying to touch all of them, because the process is a little bit different for each, and the products that we build and the programs that we support are a little bit different for each one of those. So that really kind of was how I strategized my path going forward to gain experience. The second part of your question was, did it change at all over the course of my career based on things that were going on in my family life? And yes, absolutely. When my children were young, you know, it definitely slowed. I took a slower approach to moving around. I stayed in jobs a little bit longer to provide the stability in my work life where I needed the flexibility in my home life. So, but yeah, now my kids are older, so it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wyman, how did it approach for you?
Yeah, so similarly, mine started off probably very structured. I actually started in active duty, was active for a few years and then transitioned to civil service. But I started off with a very, I would say, formalized plan. I laid out every job I wanted, every place I was going to be for my career, and I had the script down. But I didn't have an appreciation for how difficult it would be to have that kind of control over you know, what opportunities were going to come up, and just how to have that control over your career. So I really kind of transitioned back when I was probably at the GS-12 level, and I had to take a different approach. Instead of focusing more on jobs, I switched to focusing more on opportunities and experiences. I knew where I wanted to be generally. I want to continue to progress as a leader and in terms of responsibility. But I tried to, in a sense, give up the idea of picking each next job, but to kind of do a value assessment on each position as it came available to see, one, is it the right next thing for me? Can I be effective and valuable to that organization? How does it fit into my I'll say personal drivers, the things that motivate and excite me about going to work. And then, will it be challenging? So I've tried to step back and take that approach. I'm one of the folks that have bounced back and forth between cost and budget. And so doing that, I would say it kind of opens up that spectrum of possibilities, because I'm not necessarily assessing something based off of that's for for cost, the next right step, or for budget. It's more just what's the needs of the organization, and can it or how could it fit into my my long-term career plans. I've adopted mentors along the way. I've gone from early on where I'd have one mentor, which really I didn't realize at the time gave me one perspective, versus now having many mentors that I reach out to for career advice, depending on the situation, the type of job, because they all have different backgrounds and biases. And so, reaching out to many people has helped give me more perspective before I make a career change. and I've also, early on, my planning was very vertical. Each position built on the next. You went from a 12 to a 13 to a 14, and there was not really a consideration that I needed to be considering moving, I'll say, laterally. And an example is I was a GS-12 at a small location as a cost lead, wanting to pursue that 13 cost lead position. There weren't any local opportunities, and frankly, it was a very competitive environment and hard to compete at other locations. I just didn't have the same backgrounds as the folks that were there. So I moved laterally, actually, from cost to budget to gain program office experience. And it was a huge blessing, because it gave me another vantage point. It gave me an opportunity to show my abilities, and it made me competitive for things earlier than I would have had I held tight and said, no, I'm only going to go vertical. I'm not going to consider, moving side to side. Throughout my career, I've had you asked about how's personal life drive decisions, have that balance in terms of when opportunities come up, assess, how does this fit into my life right now? Am I able to take on another new thing and be effective in an organization, or do my family needs drive me to maybe hold tight and wait for the next opportunity, which comes along, for that to present itself? So kind of doing the next right opportunity, not just the next opportunity. And then also assessing about the needs of the organization I'm in. I've also tried to maintain being open, as I mentioned, that shift of looking for that job that I want to, the next opportunity, comes with the realization that you can't really plan some of these opportunities. I've had the fortune of being able to serve on a detail, went to another center for 4 months, had to make the sacrifice of being away from the family, kind of the risk or our nerves of jumping into something new. But I tell you, the experience gained, the network of friends and colleagues, the potential future opportunities that will open up, were hugely worth it. And so, something I'd recommend to folks as well is to kind of assess that there's never always a right time, but sometimes you just gotta jump on an opportunity when it's presented.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And so it sounds like changing and going into new opportunities and trying to learn new things has been a common thread. Ms. Grant, let's go to you for a second and get your perspective.
Yeah, I guess I could almost say ditto to both people, because I too started out as a trainee. So initially, it was very structured. You have certain classes you have to take, you have OJTs you have to achieve. But mine was very family dependent. I was a single parent, so I made decisions based on not so much my desires, but jobs that I could take, that I could still do those things that would fulfill me personally. It was very important for me to be there for my daughter, to go to those school events, to go to those athletic events. So early on, I made that decision. You know, I might have to sacrifice and move up at a much slower pace than others, but that was important to me. But at the same time, I was balancing my desire to learn and to grow and to be in jobs that I felt like I was benefiting the organization as well as they were benefiting me. So I took those jobs that I could learn a lot, that I could improve my knowledge. But first and foremost, until she went away to college, it was to be there for my daughter. So after she went away to college, I think I became more structured and followed that path and kind of watched the mentors and those leaders that I thought were good and valuable. I tried to follow their path, and also understand that I needed to get different types of experiences. But the majority of my career has very much been guided by that personal fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. So it's important to note that, you know, employees are responsible for kind of managing their career path as they go along. And so it's a responsibility on one hand, but as you see with Ms. Grant, it's an advantage to be able to manage the career that way so that you can make accommodations and align that with your own personal goals as well. So now we've come out with career path guides, and those guides are intended to help employees make more educated and better educated decisions on how to advance through their careers. So I just want to hear from Mr. Wyman. Do you think if you'd had kind of a structured guide earlier in your career, would it have made you do things differently, or how do you think would have impacted it?
Sure. I think for me, it would have impacted the way I looked at my career. And like I said, when you're, I think, junior, or for me, when I was junior, I very much looked at, you know, grade as a way to assess, you know, I'll say progression, right? It's a real easy way. There's a number there, and you can say, all right, you know, 12 is higher than 11, so therefore I've got some other increment of goodness. Where I think the career path guides help frame it differently in terms of, all right, so what kind of impact do I want to have? What type of roles do I want to be in? And I think the focus is more there. It breaks it up into, I would say, kind of increments of increased scope of responsibility. So, you know, for instance, like a chief of a small program versus a deputy chief of a large program, how you're going to increase your leadership span, you're going to increase what's expected of you, and folks can make an informed decision that, hey, you're about to embark on something new, but also something of increased responsibility, and they can again make that informed decision. But also you can move around laterally. You can, I don't want to use necessarily the word backwards, but you can move up and down within a band and do different things, kind of agnostic to grade. So I think it would have helped me look at my career from a what do I want to do, what impacts do I want to have, kind of approach, and with one of my goals being, you know, staying value added and kind of having a breadth of experience. It lays that right out for you in terms of the different types of things you can do at each level to have that breadth.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier making yourself a little more competitive by getting a breadth of experience. The career path guides kind of show visually what areas you might need to widen out into to make yourself more competitive. Ms. Tillman, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure, absolutely. I think the career path guides is a great tool for employees as well as supervisors too, right? Because it opens up conversation to help employees kind of talk about their goals and what they're looking for, and help structure that a little bit as you plan and kind of think about your career and where you are. I think the career path goals, guide would have helped me in my career, where once I got out of that structured training program, I had good mentors. I had people that I could talk to. Sometimes they weren't sure how to direct me. That's why I say, I think from a supervisor perspective, it could be helpful to open up conversation and have and talk about what options are out there. But I think that it would have been helpful because it would have just given a little bit more, just a little bit more structure instead of me kind of stumbling around to different things that I think I should go to. It would sort of define it a little bit for me as I was going forward. So I think it's definitely a great tool, and you know, any opportunity to learn is a good opportunity. Whether it's you know, like Dan had said, kind of laterally going across to different jobs and seeing different scope of programs. Versus types of jobs, right? As a lead or a deputy, somebody on a bigger portfolio. So thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Grant, what do you think about the career path guides?
I think it's a very valuable tool. When I think about it and I think about how I moved around or, you know, went from job to job, I think it would have allowed me to make more maybe deliberate and precise movements, because I would have had a better understanding of the impact of working in a program office versus working on staff, and how you're moving, you know, that span of responsibility and kind of what's expected of you. You know, you go from a tactical to a strategic look at things. And I think having that guide to refer to would have been of a lot of value to me. When I think about it, I kind of compare it to the earned value goal card that a lot of us are familiar with. It's maybe like a single sheet of paper, but there's a lot of information in that guide. You know, you can kind of slip it in your notebook or your binder or whatever. And as you're thinking about progressing to different jobs or making that decision to go to a different job, you can kind of pick it up and look at it and figure out where you know, currently fall and where you need to go or where you want to go. So I just think it would have been very helpful, and it would have assisted me, like Alicia said, as I had conversations with my supervisors or mentors. We could have talked through that and kind of compared different jobs that I had and those jobs that I thought I needed to go to. So yes, I think it will be a great value moving forward.
Thank you. So we're just about to the end of our time, but I want to go around again and get any items. If you had to provide a key takeaway for the listeners, what would you want it to be? And I think nobody's really talked about, we haven't talked about formal training or PME or some of those things yet. So maybe that might be a good item, but let's start with Ms. Grant.
So a couple of my key takeaways, and I'll try not to ramble, but one, be self-reflective. Stand back and look at your career and your abilities and knowledge, and think about where your strengths and weaknesses are, because normally you know those better than anyone else. So take that kind of continuous look at yourself and take those jobs that will increase your knowledge, not necessarily the easy ones that you've done before, but maybe those stretch jobs, because you know that job will give you the knowledge and ability in a field that you've not done before. So I think first you need to be self-reflective, and then I think you need to be prepared. And I think that's where the classes and understanding the guidance and the policy that exists in your field, and taking the opportunity to study those things. So be prepared. And when you go into a program office, study that program and really understand that program. So that way, when you get that opportunity to answer a question or attend a meeting, you kind of already done your homework and you can provide those answers. That will give you confidence to keep moving forward, but it also gives your leadership confidence to, you know, kind of bring you off the bench, so to speak. So be self-reflective, be prepared, and also realize that your career is yours to manage. Someone told me that years ago. As much as it's important to have mentors, good supervisors, is your career, and you have to take those steps, work the right jobs, evaluate and observe your mentors and your leaders and make the decisions that's good for you and your family, but ultimately your career is in your hand. Of course, there's a little bit of luck involved in it and those people who are supporting you along the way, but you can't just sit back and believe that somebody else is going to be there to guide you along the way. That's for you to take those steps and initiative to move out to build the career that you want to ultimately have.
Thank you. Mr. Wyman, what are your key takeaways?
So that was really well said. I'll add a couple of small comments. One, CDE is a great place to go, those courses to do that self-reflection, learn more about yourself, your leadership style, and to kind of understand more what drives you, and use those drivers to help you, again, navigate your career. I'd recommend folks jump out of their comfort zone and try different things. There are so many different cool opportunities out there. And the only way to really understand where you fit best in our FM organization is to try those different things to see, where your strengths are. And then lastly, just to really exploit the opportunities given to you in each position, because whether it's a job you love or a job that's really trying, it's going to offer you a unique experience or an opportunity to demonstrate something. And so figure out what that is and take advantage of it. Don't waste any jobs, I'll say.
And Ms. Tillman.
Yeah, really great points already. So just to add a little bit to it, this definitely with the CD, I know in my experience, I found that those classes and programs have helped so much with my personal development and leadership and being able to, in the development of my career and moving forward. So really encouraged looking into those. Also too, one of the things was to, like Dan had mentioned again, is to, spend the time in the job, take advantage of the area where you're at, right? And really learn everything that there is to learn while you're there. Be bold, reach out, ask questions, talk to not just your FM people, but your peers, your program managers and your logisticians and your engineers, and understand their viewpoint, communicate with them, kind of broaden that teamwork out beyond just your functional and have conversations with them. Is a really great thing to do and helps build your own personal education too, and has worked well for me. The other thing too is to just be mindful about your career path. And I've always looked a couple of steps ahead, like, okay, well, I know at one point, I think maybe I want to be down there, or I want to try this. And what do I need to do to get there? So that career path really comes in handy because it gives you kind of those stepping stones back and forth and forward to help you navigate that. And the biggest thing is communication. Talk with your peers, talk with your mentors, talk with your supervisors, have conversations about opportunities, and be dedicated to growing yourself.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I think this has been very informative, and I appreciate your time and patience today.